You're listening to Singularity -1. Today, we're stepping away from the usual rapid-fire facts to bring you something deeper, a full-length special episode on a topic that's equal parts fascinating, disturbing, and urgently relevant. We're calling it the Pest Paradox, how extermination created bigger disasters. It's the wild story of humanity's endless war on animals we label as pests, and how those solutions have blown up in our faces time and time again. From medieval cat massacres fueling the Black Death to modern pesticide, cascades threatening entire ecosystems. If you love stories where science, history, and epic unintended consequences collide, you're in for a treat. If you're enjoying this deeper dive, make sure to subscribe on YouTube and smash that follow on Spotify, drop a like, leave a comment, share it with a friend. It really means the world and helps us keep making these. Quick note, we've dug deep to get every fact and historical detail right, but if we ever miss something, please call us out in the comments so we can correct it fast. Thanks for being here. Now let's jump in. 1. Introduction to Theriocide. Okay, picture this. You're sitting there with a cup of coffee, scrolling through your feed on a chilly December morning in 2025, and bam, another headline about some poor farmer losing his crop to a swarm of locusts, or a city council, greenlighting a mass poisoning of rats in the sewers. You think, pest control, necessary evil, right? Gotta keep the chaos at bay. But hold up, my friend, because what if I told you that every time we humans decide to play God with a shotgun or a spray bottle, we're not just swatting a fly, we're kicking off a domino rally that ends with ecosystems flipping us the bird. Welcome to the wild, weird world of Theriocide. Yeah, say it with me, Theriocide. Sounds like a villain from a Greek tragedy, doesn't it? And in a way, it is. So let's crack this open like a cold one at the end of a long day. Theriocide isn't some dusty academic term I pulled out to sound smart, though. Full disclosure, I did study it in college back, when I thought I'd be a philosopher instead of ranting into a mic. No, this bad boy was coined in 2014 by this sharp, as a tack criminologist named Piers Bairn. Picture a guy who's basically the Sherlock Holmes of animal crimes, digging into why we treat our fellow earthlings like disposable napkins. In his essay, Theriocide, naming animal killing, Bairn drops this bomb. Theriocide means all the ways humans cause the deaths of animals. Not just the obvious stuff like hunting or factory farms, but the sneaky, everyday murders, the euthanasia at shelters that's anything but gentle, the culling of wolves to protect sheep, the pesticide clouds that wipe out entire bird flocks mid-migration. It's from the Greek therion for wild beast and the Latin cedir for to slaughter. Boom evokes homicide, genocide, all that heavy jazz, because Bairn's point is, why sugarcoat it? We're talking about killing, plain and simple, and it's time we called it what it is. Fast forward to his 2018 book, Murdering Animals, Writings on Theriocide, Homicide, and Non-Speciesist Criminology, and Bairn's really leaning in. He's like, look, without a word for this, it stays invisible. We hide behind pest management or humane dispatch, and poof, no accountability. Are you kidding me? It's genius. Because pest control sounds like you're vacuuming up crumbs, not dropping bombs on biodiversity. Culling makes it sound like a gentle trim, like pruning your rose bushes. But Theriocide, that hits you in the gut. It forces you to picture the blood, the panic, the little bodies piling up. And here's where it gets me every time. Bairn ties it to speciesism, that oh-so-human habit of thinking we're the main characters in this planetary story, and everything with fur, feathers, or scales is just an extra. Why not pest control? Because that euphemism lets us sleep at night. Theriocide. That's the alarm clock at 3 a.m., whispering, what have you done? Now scale this up to 2025, and holy heck, it's a numbers nightmare that makes your head spin. We're talking billions, with a B of animals getting the chop every year, just under the pest banner. Factory farms alone rack up 80 billion land animals annually, but that's the tip of the iceberg. Add in the pest interventions, rodents, insects, feral cats, wolves, you name it. A fresh 2025 global synthesis, yeah. Hot off the presses from some eggheads crunching over 20,000 pesticide effect sizes across 1,705 studies, pegs the non-target kills in the tens of billions. Microbes to mammals, everything's collateral. In the US alone, the EPA's dropping reports left and right about neonicotinoids imperiling 80% of endangered species. Globally. The FAO's estimating 1.8 billion hectares blanketed in chemicals that don't give a damn about pest or pal. And get this, urban rat poisonings in cities like New York or London. They're not just thinning the whiskers, they're poisoning owls, foxes, even pets that scavenge the baited bodies. Billions. It's not hyperbole, it's a holocaust we greenlight with a shrug. But here's the real gut punch, the core theme that's got me all fired up tonight, the unintended consequences. Oh man, this is where human hubris struts in like it owns the place, swings a sledgehammer, and wonders why the house is on fire. We kill the pest thinking we've won the war, but nope, ecology's got a twisted sense of humor. Kill the wolves to save the deer. Congrats, you've got overgrazed forests and eroded rivers. Poison the prairie dogs. Say hello to barren grasslands and invasive weeds. It's like we're playing Jenga with the food web, yanking out blocks labeled annoying and pretending the tower won't topple. A 2025 Nature Communications meta-analysis nails it. These killings disrupt everything from soil microbes to migratory birds, accelerating the biodiversity crisis faster than a runaway train. Trophic cascades, they call M fancy for one death begets a dozen disasters. And the cost. Trillions in ecosystem services, flushed pollination, clean water, carbon storage, all because we couldn't resist the quick fix. So why does this matter to you, slouched on your couch, half listening while folding laundry? Because it's not ancient history or far-off farms, it's the web you're tangled in. That burger you scarfed, born from fields doused in death. That park you jog in, echoing with ghosts of culled coyotes. Theriocide isn't just killing animals, it's killing the balance that keeps us breathing easy. And as we dive deeper, buckle up, because the stories, they're bonkers. Tragic, hilarious in that dark way, and packed with, I can't believe we did that moments that'll have you side-eyeing humanity in the mirror tomorrow. 2. Historical roots and conceptual foundations. All right, deep breath, we've named the beast, sized up its appetite. Now let's rewind the tape to where this whole mess started. Because if you think Theriocide's a modern sin, born from pesticides and politics, oh boy, are you in for a time travel smackdown. Humans have been on this ego trip since we first sharpened a stick, and the roots, they're gnarled, ancient, and buried in stories that make you wonder if we ever learn. Pour another drink. This is the origin story that explains why we're still screwing the pooch dingo in 2025. Kick off with the ancients, because nothing says hubris like blaming gods for bugs and then going full scorched earth. Way back around 2500 BCE, Sumerian scribes in Mesopotamia are etching cuneiform tablets about locust plagues that strip fields bare like apocalyptic lawnmowers. These weren't just pests, they were divine smackdowns, harbingers of angry deities pissed at some king's bad karma. Farmers respond with ritual sacrifices, incantations, but when that flops, it's out come the torches and sickles. Mass slaughters of swarms, bodies piled and burned, all in the name of appeasing the heavens. Fast forward to the Bible, and bam, Exodus 8, the plague of frogs. God unleashes amphibians on Egypt as payback, and Pharaoh's magicians. They try to counter with more frogs, because why not double down? But the real Theriocide kicker, the command to destroy utterly the vermin, no mercy. Jewish texts from the era describe Passover rat traps laced with herbs, but here's the irony. Unburied carcasses spread filth, worsening the very plagues they fought. Are you kidding me? We're 2 steps from the Stone Age, and already we're turning pest control into a feedback loop of filth and fury. But here's where it gets conceptual, like we're cracking open a philosophy textbook at the bar. These ancient acts weren't random. They were baked into anthropocentrism, the idea that humans are the crown jewel and everything else is backdrop or bully. Enter the Enlightenment, late 1700s, and Carl Linnaeus struts in with his Systema Naturae, slapping labels on every critter. Useful or harmful. Suddenly, nature's alleger bees get a gold star for honey, wolves a red flag for sheep munching. It's the birth of the pest ontology, that mental filing system where we decide who's villain and who's victim. Linnaeus isn't cackling like a mad scientist, but his binary. It industrializes killing. By the 1800s, factories chug out poisons, bounties turn civilians into bounty hunters, and Theriocide goes from ritual to routine. Rachel Carson would weep her 1962, Silent Spring, is basically a love letter roasting this era's DDT delusions, but we'll get there. Now layer on colonialism, and whoa Nelly, does the hubris hit warp speed. Take Australia, 19th century. British settlers roll in, see dingoes nipping at sheep heels, and declare open season. Bounties, fences stretching 5,600 kilometers, the world's longest, a scar across the outback. They think they're taming the wild, but nope, remove the top dog, and feral cats explode, gobbling native marsupials like popcorn. A 2025 ethno-ecological study from Down Under links it to 40% biodiversity dips in pastoral zones. Africa's no picnic either. Colonial Brits in Kenya, 1910s, aerial spray locusts clashing with Yoruba folklore that sees them as ancestral messengers. Ritual protections, tossed. Result, pollinators die, yields halve, famines cycle like bad reruns. In India, British culls ignore Hanuman's rat army allies from the Ramayana, sparking monkey booms in Delhi that clog sewers to this day. It's not just killing pests, it's cultural erasure with ecological napalm. Settlers impose dominion theology from Genesis 1:28. Subdue the earth, turning continents into chessboards where animals are pawns. And underpinning it all, speciesism, that sneaky bias Baron hammers in his 2018 book. Coined by Richard Ryder in the 70s, but amplified by Peter Singer's Animal Liberation. It's the arbitrary line we draw. Human pain matters, animal pain. Maybe if it's a puppy. Baron flips it to non-speciesist criminology, treat Theriocide like homicide, because sentience doesn't care about thumbs. We share nociceptors, fear responses, social bonds. Yet we prioritize our crops over their lives, our comfort over their communities. Philosophically, it's Aristotle's ladder of being, with us at the top, or Descartes' beasts as machines. But in 2025, with a criminology and criminal justice, peace calling culls, necropolitics, bare life for the expendable, it's Foucault meets farm policy. We're not just killers, we're architects of inequality, stacking the deck so pests get no vote. What the heck does this mean for us now? These roots aren't relics, they're the soil we still till. Ancient plagues echo in our pesticide sprays, colonial bounties in our drone drops. It's hubris on repeat. We think we're smarter than the web, but the web, it snaps back harder. And as we roll into these classic screw-ups from history, get ready, because if the foundations are shaky, the house of cards, it's about to come crashing down in ways that'll have you laughing through the tears. You're listening to Singularity -1. If you're enjoying this deeper dive, make sure to subscribe on YouTube and smash that follow on Spotify, drop a like, leave a comment, share it with a friend. It really means the world and helps us keep making these. Quick note, we do our absolute best to be factually correct, but if we ever slip up, call us out in the comments so we can fix it. Thanks for being here, now back to the facts. 3. Classic historical case studies, lessons from the past. Oh man, now we're at the meaty part, the stories that make you lean in, wide-eyed, whispering no way to your empty glass. These aren't dry history lessons. They're cautionary tales of human dumbassery dialed to 11, where good intentions pave a highway to ecological hell. Each one's a self-contained disaster flick, complete with plot twists, body counts, and that slow burn realization. We did this to ourselves. Buckle up, because we're time-hopping through the greatest hits of Theriocide backfires, starting with a pope who basically handed Europe to the rats. Let's go. First up, the medieval cat purge, or as I like to call it, how to summon the Black Death with a side of superstition. It's 1233, Europe's knee-deep in witch panics, and Pope Gregory Roman IX drops Vox in Rama, a papal bull that's basically a fatwa on black cats. Why? Because some German kids claimed cats were Satan's sidekicks in ritual orgies, yeah. You heard that right, medieval fake news at its finest. Cats, those furry rat assassins who'd been keeping granaries safe since Egyptian times, suddenly get rebranded as demonic. Cue the massacres. Skinned for pelts archaeologists dug up 79 ritually slaughtered skeletons in Cambridge pits alone, drowned in rivers, torched at stakes alongside witches. By the 1340s, cat populations are in the toilet urban middens, those ancient trash heaps. Show feline bones, vanishing like ghosts. Enter the punchline, rats. Without their nemeses, Rattus norvegicus throw the mother of all parties. Fleas loaded with Yersinia pestes hitch a ride on these unchecked hordes, and when the plague sails in from Kaffa via Geno's ships in 1347, kaboom. The Black Death rips through, felling 25 to 60 million Europeans, up to 60% of the continent in 4 brutal years. Boccaccio's Decameron paints the scene. Streets reeking of equine waste and offal, a rodent buffet in London's Farringdon alleys, granaries gnawed to dust. Labor shortages spike famines, serfs bolt for the hills, harvests rot. And the cascades? Mice infest mills, contaminating flour. Avian scavengers boom, then crash from habitat stress. By 1400, Venice is scrambling with cat mandates to rat-proof the city, but the scar. Europe's halved, economies gutted for decades. Irony alert. Those devil cats could have slashed the toll in half. What the heck, Gregory? Your Holiness just auditioned for the role of plague enabler. Speaking of ideological idiocy cranked to genocidal levels, let's fast forward to 1958 China and Mao's 4 Pests campaign. This one's so bonkers it feels like a dystopian satire, but nope, it's real, and it starved tens of millions. Mao Zedong, in his great leap-forward fever dream, declares war on rats, flies, mosquitoes, and sparrows. Why sparrows? Grain pests, nibbling seeds like feathered thieves. The plan, nationwide extermination. Cotters bang pots to exhaust birds mid-flight, imagine billions dropping from the sky, fields carpeted in feathery husks. Villages tally quotas like grim scorecards, people's daily, blaring victory laps. By 1959, sparrow populations obliterated. Here's where it gets absolutely bonkers. Sparrows aren't just seed snitchers, they're locust lunch ladies. Without them, Locusta migratoria swarms erupt like biblical revenge porn, devouring rice paddies whole. A 2025 retrospective study clocks crop yields plunging 20% nationwide. The 1959-1961 Great Chinese Famine kicks in 15 to 55 million dead, depending on who you ask, from starvation in a land that thought it'd feed the world. Flies and mosquitoes, they rebound anyway as sanitation collapses under the chaos. Rats, they feast on the carrion bonanza. Deforestation for fuel erodes soils, floods silt fields, harvests tank another 30–40%. Mao, to his credit or what's left of it, imports Soviet sparrows in 1960 for a hasty reboot, but the damage? A policy pivot born from Pest Armageddon. Table it out in your mind. Sparrows gone, locusts explode, humans starve. It's Theriocide as self-sabotage, a communist cautionary tale where erasing competitors leaves you eating your own homework. Down under, Australia's dingo bounties turn the outback into a mesopredator mosh pit, and it's been raging since the 1880s. Colonial Brits arrive, spot dingoes, Canny's dingo eyeing their precious sheep, and boom bounties galore. Poison baits, the massive dingo fence snaking 5,600 km longer than the Great Wall. What a flex, aerial shoots claiming thousands yearly. By the 1920s, dingoes are ghosts in sheep country per dusty pastoral logs. Victory? Ha. Without apex enforcers, feral cats, Felis catus, dingoes' favorite chew toys go full population boom. A 2019 UNSWA study across 400 sites shows cat densities tripling to quintupling in dingo deserts, blanketing 99.8% of the continent. Foxes pile on, mesopredator release in overdrive. Small mammals scatter, macropods crash, vegetation gets trampled into dust. The ripples, overgrazing by unchecked kangaroos, erodes soils red as Mars. Cat-borne toxoplasmosis hammers wildlife, stressing everything from quokkas to koalas. Ranchers, get this, shell out $20 million plus yearly chasing the cats and foxes they unleashed. A 2025 federal push aims to cull 2 million felines, but in dingo-friendly fringes like South Australia borders. Cat numbers have naturally, prey stabilizes. It's a twisted experiment. Kill the guardian, inherit the horde. Economic hit. Over $100 million in biodiversity band-aids. Australia's whispering. Thanks, empire you're taming tamed us right into a cat apocalypse. Stateside, Yellowstone's wolf removal is the poster child for trophic tragedy, a slow-motion eco-disaster from 1914 to 1926 that reads like a park ranger's nightmare diary. U.S. agents extirpate 136 gray wolves, Canny's lupus, branding M threats to elk hunting trophies. By the 1930s, wolves. Extinct in the park, ranger logs blank as a fresh snowfall. Elk herds explode to 20,000 plus, turning the place into a browser's buffet. Willows, aspens, cottonwoods. Stripped bare, riverbanks erode like melting ice cream. Beavers, Castor canadensis, starve without forage, dams vanish. Streams silt up, fish populations tank. A 2007 trophic cascade model quantifies it. Woody plants down 50% or more. Songbirds bail. Coyotes surge preying on fawns but leaving small mammal voids. Wider waves crash hard. Grizzlies and ravens go hungry sans wolf kill scraps. Tourism sags under tame elk parades. Then, 1995-31 wolves reintroduced and magic. Elk get vigilant, browsing eases. Willows rebound 300%, beavers return, rivers meander healthy again, hydrology heals. It's recovery porn. Otters splash back, bison thrive under moderated grazing. Pre-1926 balance, about 100 wolves keeping the peace. Post-cull void, decades of imbalance. Lesson, remove the top and the middle runs amok hubris in hoofprints. Zoom to sub-Antarctic Macquarie Island, and the cat-cull-rabbit rampage is island isolation turned into a food web farce, spanning 1810 to 2001. Cats, shipwrecked in the 1810s, get tagged as seabird slaughterers by the 1980s. Conservationists trap and shoot 2,000 felines to save penguins and albatrosses. Sounds noble, right? Wrong. Rabbits, Oryctolagus cuniculus, cat's natural speed bump, quadruple to 130,000, overgrazing tussock grasslands into oblivion. 2006 surveys clock 40% slope erosion, weeds invading like uninvited guests, seabird burrows collapsing under the chaos. Myxomatosis, the 1950s rabbit virus, fizzles in the density boom, rodents erupt next. Cascades, total ecosystem topple, partial Theriocide primes the pump for full meltdown. 2014's mega eradication cats, rabbits, rodents costs $25 million, vegetation perks up, but the prior folly. A microcosm of fix one, break two. It's like playing whack-a-mole with the menu, wrong hit cats, rabbits pop, hit all, pray for reset. Finally, the DDT-era ironies. Post-1940s, this miracle chemical turns into beneficial butcheries boomerang, birthing pest parades from coast to coast. Sprayed on U.S. forests like 1945 Pennsylvania's gypsy moth blitz it nukes caterpillars, but takes out 4,000 birds and ladybugs. Coccinellity, aphid's arch nemesis. Aphid, aphidity, avalanches defoliate oaks, orchard sea rebounds demanding more sprays. Earthworms hoard residues, poisoning robins. Michigan's Dutch elm disease vectors thrive amid dead predators. Urban canopies thin 80%. 1950s national yields dip 20%. Runoff chokes delta fisheries with algal blooms. Resistance. Glyphosate's Palmer amaranth weeds laugh it off by the 60s. Ball weevils in the south. Arsenic and DDT spawn aphids and tarnished plant bugs. Ligus linolaris. 30% crop losses despite the blitz. It's chemical whack-a-mole on steroids. Kill the good guys, watch the bad multiply. Carson's silent spring rings the alarm, but the irony. DDT's triumph against malaria vectors nearly erased eagles via eggshell thins banned in 72, but echoes in 2025 neonics. Phew, what a rogues gallery of regret. These tales aren't just history. They are mirrors, reflecting our knack for solving problems with sledgehammers. From papal purges to pesticide paradoxes, the pattern's clear. Kill quick, regret slow. Hubris whispers control, but nature roars back consequences. We've torched cats and starved millions, fenced dingoes and flooded with felines, erased wolves and watched rivers weep. Billions dead, ecosystems scarred, all because we forgot the webs woven tight. But hey, it's not all doom. These fiascos forged the fixes we're chasing today, from IPM whispers to ethical reckonings. Still, as we toast these ghosts, a nagging question lingers. If history's this loud, why do we keep hitting snooze? Stick around, because next we're cracking open the modern mayhem 2025 fresh hells, where drones drop death and ethics get an upgrade. You won't believe the backfires we've cooked up since Mao's sparrow barbecue. Cheers to not repeating it. Yet. 4. Modern and emerging case studies. Okay, folks, let's dive into the meaty part where things get really juicy, and by juicy, I mean a hot mess of human overconfidence leading to epic faceplants. We're talking modern case studies here, straight out of the last few decades up to this very month in December 2025, where we've got fresh data pouring in from labs and fields worldwide. These aren't dusty old tales. These are the ongoing screw-ups we're still paying for, complete with satellite imagery, AI models, and scientists throwing their hands up like, "We told you so." I'll walk you through each one like we're dissecting a bad movie plot, because honestly, the twists are that predictable yet still shocking. Buckle up, because if you thought history was full of hubris, wait till you see what we're doing right now. Tasmanian feral cats. Culling backfires with population doubling. All right, picture this. Tasmania, that rugged island off Australia's coast, home to devils, wallabies, and a whole bunch of feral cats that hitchhiked there with European settlers back in the day. These cats are no joke. They are apex predators in a land full of unique critters that never evolved to deal with fluffy murder machines. By the 2010s, folks were like, enough! These cats are wiping out our native birds and small mammals. Time for a cull. So, in 2015, they rolled out this operation on a chunk of forest. Traps, baits, shooters, the works. They managed to take out about 36 cats over a 4-square-mile area. Sounds like a win, right? High fives all around. Oh, honey, no. Here's where it gets absolutely bonkers. Instead of the cat population shrinking, it doubled. Yeah, you heard that right, doubled. A study from that year, updated with 2024 tracking data from the University of Tasmania, shows that when you kill off the established cats, especially the big bosses in the hierarchy, it creates a vacuum. Juvenile cats from surrounding areas come flooding in like it's an all-you-can-eat buffet. And with less competition, the survivors breed like crazy. Food resources spike because fewer mouths to feed initially, so boom, kitten explosion. By 2020, in semi-isolated spots they tried again, the recolonization happened in months. We're talking GPS collars on these furballs, showing migration patterns that look like a freeway during rush hour. And the irony, The native species they were trying to protect, like the eastern quolls or bandicoots, ended up worse off because the new cat influx was younger, hungrier, and more aggressive. A 2025 report from Oxford's Environmental Change Institute piles on, saying low-intensity culls in open ecosystems are basically invitations for invasion. It's like trying to empty a bathtub with a teaspoon while the faucet's still running. Are you kidding me? We spend millions on this, and it backfires so spectacularly that now Tasmania's got drone surveillance programs just to monitor the rebound. If you're sitting there shaking your head, join the club. This one's a classic example of us thinking we're smarter than nature's immigration policy. UK badger culls, bovine TB spread amplification. Shifting gears to the misty moors of the UK, where badgers, those adorable, striped-faced burrowers, have been caught in a drama that's part wildlife thriller, part public health fiasco. Bovine tuberculosis, or BTB, is this nasty bacterial disease that jumps between cattle and wildlife, costing farmers a fortune in lost herds. Since the 1970s, the government's been pointing fingers at badgers as the main culprits, leading to massive culls. By 2023, over 100,000 badgers had been shot or trapped in designated zones. The pitch: kill the carriers, stop the spread. Simple, right? Wrong again, my friend. What the heck were they thinking? Turns out, badgers live in tight-knit social groups called clans, and when you start picking them off, the survivors freak out and scatter. A 2023 study in Science Daily, freshened up with 2025 data from randomized badger tracking, shows that perturbed clans roam up to twice as far, sometimes 200% more territory. That means they're crossing farms they never touched before, potentially spreading Mycobacterium bovis, the TB bug, even wider. Incidence rates in cull zones up 20–30% in some spots, according to models from Ecological applications back in 2009 that predicted this exact mess, and boy, were they spot on. It's a feedback loop of doom. Culling disrupts hierarchies, so young badgers disperse, mingle with new groups, and bam, more transmission. Foxes move in to fill the void, and guess what? They can carry TB too, hedging the bets on new reservoirs. A 2025 update from the UX Animal and Plant Health Agency admits that while some herds look healthier short-term, the long-game data screams amplification. Farmers are out millions, badgers are decimated, and TB's still partying like it's 1999. Here's the sarcastic cherry. Trials for badger vaccinations started in 2025, showing promise without the bloodshed. Why didn't we lead with that? Because nothing says effective policy like ignoring science for decades. If you're groaning, good, that's the sound of collective eye rolling across the pond. Barred owls in the Pacific Northwest, invasive vs. native conflicts. Now let's fly over to the Pacific Northwest, where owls are having an identity crisis that's straight out of a Shakespearean tragedy. We've got the spotted owl, this cute, endangered native that's been the poster child for old-growth forest protection since the 90s logging wars. Enter the barred owl, bigger, bolder, and originally from the East Coast, but they've been expanding westward thanks to human-altered landscapes. By the 2010s, barred owls were out competing and even hybridizing with spotted ones, pushing them toward extinction. So the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service rolls out a plan: cull the barred owls to save the spotted. Sounds noble, huh? They're talking a 30-year program starting in earnest around 2025, with shooters taking out thousands. Early pilots in the 2010s zapped a few hundred, and initial reports were like, hey, spotted owls are hanging in there better. But buckle up, because this one's wild from start to finish. A November 2025 piece in Adventures NW magazine, backed by data from the USGS, shows that shooting barred owls just scatters the survivors. They flee to new territories, sometimes hybridizing more aggressively with spotted owls in the chaos. Chris Johnson's 2016 New Scientist article warned about this overabundance culls backfire by increasing dispersal and gene flow. By 2024, sentient media was drawing parallels to wolf hunts, kill M, and the pack's splinter, leading to more conflicts. In owl terms, it's avian apartheid gone wrong. We're playing God with who gets to be native. But the barred owls aren't villains. They're just adapting to the mess we made with fire suppression and habitat changes that opened corridors for them. The twist: hybrid owls might actually be fitter in changing climates, per a 2025 genetic study from the University of Washington. So, are we preserving purity or dooming the lineage to obsolescence? Non-target effects include stressed ecosystems where owl predation shifts, affecting small mammals and birds. It's a moral quagmire wrapped in feathers, and as of December 2025, protests are raging because, surprise, killing one species to save another feels a lot like Theriocide roulette. What the heck, humans? Can't we just restore habitats instead of turning forests into battlegrounds? Prairie dogs and Tibetan pikas, keystone species mislabeled as pests. Oh, this duo is my favorite underdog story or under-rodent, I guess. First, prairie dogs in the U.S. Great Plains. These chubby burrowers get labeled pests because their towns riddle pastures, supposedly competing with cattle for grass and creating ankle-twisting holes. Ranchers have been poisoning them with stuff like zinc phosphide since the early 1900s, wiping out colonies left and right. By 2025, estimates say we've lost 98% of historic prairie dog habitat. But here's the bonkers part: they're keystone species. A 2023 study from Colorado State University, updated this year with drone mapping, shows their burrows are biodiversity hotspots. They aerate soil, prevent erosion, and provide homes for everything from burrowing owls to black-footed ferrets, which are endangered and rely on prairie dogs for 90% of their diet. Cull them and the whole system collapses. Ferrets starve, owls relocate, and grasslands degrade into dusty wastelands. Overgrazing by unchecked herbivores follows, and invasive weeds take over. It's like pulling the Jenga block that holds everything up. Now flip to the Tibetan Plateau, where pikas, tiny, ear-fluffy cousins to rabbits, face the same fate. Labeled pests for damaging grasslands, China's been poisoning them en masse since the 50s to boost livestock forage. A 2023 paper in Global Ecology and Conservation, with 2025 addendums from satellite data, reveals they're keystones too. Burrows improve water infiltration, reduce floods, and support plant diversity. Kill them off, and meadows erode up to 30% more soil loss in culled areas, per models. Weeds invade, biodiversity dips 40%, and the very pastures for yaks and sheep turn barren. A December 2025 X thread from @PrapThyM hammers this home with photos of eroded slopes looking like moonscapes. The irony twists the knife. Both species engineer ecosystems that benefit humans long-term. Yet we mislabel them pests and Theriocide away, costing billions in restoration. Are you kidding me? If only we'd listened to ecologists yelling "Keystone" from the rooftops. These cases scream, stop the slaughter, start the science. Ball weevil and southern cotton, pesticide resistance and secondary pests. Let's head down to the American South, where cotton fields stretch like white seas, and the ball weevil, this tiny beetle with a snout like a bad proboscis joke, has been the bane of farmers since the 1890s. It bores into cotton balls, ruining harvests. Enter the pesticide parade. From arsenic in the 1910s to DDT in the 40s and 50s, we doused the fields like it was going out of style. What happened? Resistant city, baby. The weevils evolved superpowers, shrugging off chemicals that once dropped them dead. By the 1960s, yields were down 30% despite heavier sprays, per historical USDA records dug up in a 2025 retrospective. But the real chaos: secondary pests boomed. Aphids, tarnished plant bugs, and armyworms previously kept in check by beneficial insects exploded because the pesticides wiped out ladybugs, wasps, and spiders too. It's like inviting the weevil's cousins to the party after killing the bouncers. Runoff poisoned rivers, causing algal blooms that choked fisheries in the Mississippi Delta. Economic hit, billions lost, farmer bankruptcies spiking in the 50s. A 2025 bio from the Smithsonian revisits this as the backdraft of ball-weevil war, with models showing how resistance forced a switch to traps and IPM by the 60s. But the damage lingered, soil contaminated, biodiversity tanked. Here's where it gets sarcastic. We spent decades poisoning everything, only to realize targeted traps work better without the apocalypse. Human stupidity at its finest, folks. Britain's badger bloodletting updates 1970s, 2025. Wrapping this section with an update on those UK badgers we touched earlier because this saga's still unfolding like a bad soap opera. From the 1970s bounties to 2025 ongoing culls, over 200,000 badgers have bit the dust by now, per latest DFRA figures. The goal? Curb BTB in cattle. But 2025 data from behavioral studies, it's amplifying spread more than ever. Roaming badgers from culled areas are tracked via collars, showing they venture into new farms, upping infection risks by 25%. A fresh model in Veterinary Record this month predicts long-term instability from overcompensation, survivors breeding faster in disrupted clans. Fox intrusions add TB layers, and soil compaction from trampled hedgerows worsens erosion. The punchline? Vaccination trials in Wales are slashing TB without kills, costing less. Yet policy drags. What the heck, 50 years of data and we're still bloodletting? It's hubris on repeat. 5. Pesticides and chemical Theriocide. Phew, after those case studies, let's zoom out a bit and talk about the big guns. Pesticides. These are the chemical assassins we deploy in our war on pests, but spoiler, they are equal opportunity killers, turning Theriocide into a full-blown environmental crime scene. I'm going to break it down like we're chatting over coffee, because this stuff is everywhere, from your backyard to global farmlands, and the 2024-2025 research is dropping bombshells that make you wonder if we're trying to win or just self-sabotage. Mechanisms of pesticides. Neonicotinoids, glyphosate, rodenticides. First off, neonicotinoids, or neonics for short. These bad boys are systemic insecticides, meaning plants absorb them like a sponge, and any bug that nibbles gets a nervous system meltdown. Introduced in the 90s, they're coated on seeds for crops like corn and soy. Glyphosate, the star of Roundup, is an herbicide that zaps weeds by blocking enzyme pathways. But it doesn't stop at plants, it messes with microbes and animals too. Then rodenticides, like brodifacoum or bromadiolone, are anticoagulants that make rodents bleed out internally. Sounds targeted. Think again. The mechanism is sneaky. Neonics persist in soil for months, leaching into water and hitting bees mid-forage. A 2025 study from Harvard shows they impair bee navigation at sub-lethal doses, like giving them permanent vertigo. Glyphosate. It chelates metals in soil, starving plants and microbes of essentials. Rodenticides. They don't degrade fast, so a poisoned rat becomes a toxic time bomb for anything that eats it. We're talking chemistry that's precise in the lab but a wildfire in the wild. And get this, global use surged 15% in 2025 due to climate-pushed pests, per FAO stats. Are you kidding me? We're amping up the arsenal while ignoring the friendly fire. Drift and non-target effects, from fields to wild habitats. Drift is the silent killer here. Pesticides don't stay put. They hitch rides on wind, rain, or dust, traveling 500 meters or more. A January 2025 Environmental Pollution Review analyzed over 100 sites. Airborne residues turned wildflower meadows into graveyards, slashing diversity by 50% plus. Non-target effects: butterflies, moths, even frogs absorbing through skin. In U.S., Midwest monocultures, neonics drifted into prairies, cratering pollinator numbers bees down 20%, per USC's 2025 data. From fields to forests, it's chaos. Adjacent habitats become killing fields, with wild plants wilting and starving herbivores. A 2025 Environmental Entomology study pegged 42 common pesticides drifting far, hitting non-crops harder than expected. The twist: this creates pest refuges in wild areas, leading to rebounds. What the heck, we're poisoning our backups while the pests adapt. It's like bombing your own supply lines. Bioaccumulation and secondary poisoning, e.g., owls, raptors. Bioaccumulation is where it gets creepy. Toxins build up in fatty tissues, magnifying up the food chain. A poisoned insect gets eaten by a bird, which gets eaten by an owl. Bam, the owl's toast. Rodenticides are pros at this. A 2025 YouTube seminar from the Raptor Research Foundation details how urban rat baits kill barn owls via secondary poisoning. Autopsies show 80% of dead raptors in California had anticoagulant residues. Owls and hawks suffer most populations, down 30% in treated areas, per 2024 Audubon reports. The cascade: unchecked rodents boom, necessitating more poison. A 2025 BioArxiv preprint models this loop. Secondary kills collapse predator control, amplifying pests. Ironic, right? We kill rats to save crops, but end up with more rats because we offed their natural enemies. Human logic at its finest. 2024-2025 research highlights. EPA indictments, Nature Communications meta-analysis. Fresh off the press. The EPA's 2024 biological evaluations indicted neonics for endangering 80% of U.S.-listed species, 1,445 at risk, habitats for 658 more. From whooping cranes ingesting treated seeds to cave shrimp in contaminated streams, it's an indictment of Theriocide. February 2025, Nature Communications meta-analysis crunched 20,000 effect sizes from 1,705 studies. Overwhelmingly negative on non-targets, growth down in amps, repro crashed in birds, behaviors fried in fish. Temperate zones hit hardest, but tropics close behind. UK experts in Science Media Centre reacted. Sublethals are the ticking bomb, bees disoriented, birds migrating wrong. A 2025 global synthesis warns of far-reaching wildlife consequences. If this doesn't scream, "Stop the madness," I don't know what does. Pesticide mixtures and synergistic harms. Real talk. Farmers don't use one pesticide. They mix 80% of fields get cocktails. Synergism means harms multiply. Pyrethroids plus fungicides slash invertebrate biomass 2x more than alone, per 2025 models. A Harvard abstract shows chronic low doses erode pollinator microbes, linking to 20% bee collapses via dysbiosis. In soils, mixtures have diversity, fostering resistance genes that leach out. A 2025 PMC analysis: fungicides like azoxystrobin zap non-target yeasts, disrupting decomposition. Economic: $50 annual soil degradation. Are you kidding? Regulations test singles, but reality's a toxic brew. It's Theriocide on steroids, and we're the ones getting punched. 6. Microbial and soil ecosystem disruptions. All right, we've talked visible carnage, but let's go underground literally. Soil's not dirt. It's a bustling metropolis of microbes, worms, and fungi that make life possible. Pesticides turn this into a ghost town, extending Theriocide to the invisible world. As of December 2025, with climate-stressed crops driving a 15% pesticide spike, studies peg $50 yearly losses in degradation. I'll break it down casually, because this subterranean sabotage is where our food security crumbles, and it's all because we can't stop spraying. Pesticides as unintended antimicrobials. Pesticides aren't picky, they act like broad-spectrum antibiotics on soil life. Organophosphates inhibit enzymes in microbes just like in insects, slashing populations. Glyphosate. It hits the shikimate pathway in bacteria, dropping AMF arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi by 40%, per a 2024 Environmental Research Review. These fungi are plant partners, trading nutrients for sugars. Neonics persist at 100-500 ppb, decimating earthworm gut flora and impairing burrowing aeration drops 30%, says 2025 BioRxiv. Fungicides target pests, but nuke non-target yeasts, per PMC 2023. The result? Dysbiosis, a messed-up microbiome favoring bad actors over good. A 2025 EDSABS abstract from Harvard. Mixtures synergize, having diversity. What the heck? We're waging war on the soil's immune system, turning fertile ground into barren waste. Impacts on earthworms, nematodes, and mycorrhizal fungi. Earthworms, neonics bioaccumulate, cutting populations 50% in contaminated spots per studies. They aerate and fertilize. Without M, soil compacts, water runs off. Nematodes' tiny worms get zapped. Predatory ones control pests, but pesticides kill them too, letting bad nematodes surge. Mycorrhizal fungi, crucial for 80% of plants, but glyphosate severs symbioses, reducing P uptake 25%. A 2024 Science Direct in Brazilian soy, 50% AMF decline, eroding 2 tons/ha yearly. Cascades, poorer plants, more pesticides needed. It's a treadmill of doom, folks. Nutrient cycling breakdowns, nitrogen, phosphorus, carbon. Here's the nitty-gritty. Rhizobia and fixers die under carbamates, spiking fertilizer needs 15% and emitting 100 mt CO2 yearly. Phosphorus? Bacteria solubilize it, but glyphosate locks it up. Carbon? Microbes sequester 70% in tropics. Disruptions accelerate erosion. Denitrifiers favored over fixers, nitrate runoff up 40%, eutrophying lakes, per 2025 models. Organic matter drops 25%, collapsing chains. In Midwest corn, it's biological deserts. Are you kidding? We're breaking the cycles that feed us. Soil erosion, compaction, and long-term degradation. No worms or fungi. Soil aggregates crumble, erosion skyrockets. Compaction from lost burrows reduces infiltration, causing floods. A 2024 review, degraded soils /GDP 13%. In arid West, it's 40% biodiversity dips. Long-term, resistance genes spread, pathogens rise. 2025 global reviews, 25% yield losses from lost enemies. It's sabotage, pure and simple. Economic costs, billions in lost fertility and GDP impact. Crunch the numbers, $1.5t yearly in ecosystem services lost. Degraded soils cost $50b in fertility hits. Adoption of drips preserves 20% microbes, but lags at 10%. Policy gaps like EU's 50% cut ignoring microbes perpetuate. We're paying billions for our stupidity. Okay, phew, that was a deep dive into the dirt, literally. Reflecting on all this, from cat booms in Tasmania to soil microbes gasping for life, it's clear. Theriocide isn't just killing animals, it's unraveling the planet one misguided cull at a time. We've got the data, the warnings, the backfires staring us in the face, yet hubris keeps us swinging. But hey, maybe 2025 the year we smarten up, or not. Stick around, because next we're tackling the folklore and religious twists that make this mess even more surreal, trust me. You won't believe how myths fuel the madness. You're listening to Singularity -1. If you're enjoying this deeper dive, make sure to subscribe on YouTube and smash that follow on Spotify, drop a like, leave a comment, share it with a friend. It really means the world and helps us keep making these. Quick note, we do our absolute best to be factually correct, but if we ever slip up, call us out in the comments so we can fix it. Thanks for being here, now back to the facts. 7. Climate change and pest dynamics. Okay, friend, lean in close because here's where it gets absolutely bonkers. We're cranking up the planet's thermostat, and guess who's throwing a massive party? The the pests. Yeah, the very critters we label as annoying invaders are basically getting a turbo boost from climate change, spreading farther, breeding faster, and turning into super outbreaks that make us reach for the big guns even harder. And those big guns. More Theriocide, more chemicals, more unintended carnage. It's like we're handing them the invite and then freaking out when they show up with all their friends. First off, warming temperatures are straight up supercharging these pests' lives. Take insects, they're cold-blooded, right? So hotter weather speeds up their metabolism like they've chugged a triple espresso. Shorter winters mean fewer die-offs, longer summers mean more time to munch and multiply. A fresh 2024 study out of the University of Alberta on mountain pine beetles. Lab tests with elevated CO2 showed their life cycle shaving off at least 5 days egg to adult, boom, faster. That means bigger beetles that fly farther, infesting new forests we thought were safe. And we're talking outbreaks that are already turning vast swaths of North American pines red and dead, pumping out more carbon as those trees rot, feeding back into, you guessed it, more warming. Then there's range expansion, are you kidding me? Places that used to be too chilly for certain pests are now rolling out the red carpet. Mountain pine beetles, historically stuck at lower elevations, are marching up the Rockies into high-altitude whitebark pines because milder winters aren't killing the larvae anymore. USG's models from recent years predict this continuing, wiping out keystone trees that feed grizzlies and birds. Same vibe with the emerald ash borer. This Asian invader's spreading north and west as winters soften, with 2025 projections showing even broader threats to ash species across continents. Climate models are screaming that by 2070, huge new areas will be prime real estate for these borers. Reproduction? Oh man, it's exploding. Warmer temps often mean more generations per year. Fall armyworm, that nightmare for maize farmers, thrives in hotter, erratic weather. Models from the last couple years forecast global expansion through the 2070s, with Africa and Asia seeing continuous breeding, up to 15 generations a year in some spots. Drought-stressed crops become sitting ducks. Heavier rains create perfect breeding puddles for mosquitoes and others. It's not just more pests, it's pests on steroids. Now, phenological mismatches, fancy word for timing going haywire. Pests hatch or emerge earlier because of warm springs, but their natural enemies like predatory wasps or birds might not get the memo. Codling moths in orchards popping out before their parasites are ready. Boom, outbreak. Studies show this could slash natural biological control by up to 30% in some systems. Nature's checks and balances, totally out of sync. And the feedback loops, here's the tragic irony that makes me want to scream. Pests like spruce budworms or pine beetles defoliate forests, killing trees that were sucking up CO2. Dead forests release stored carbon, accelerating warming, which invites more pests. British Columbia's massive outbreaks already flipped forests from carbon sinks to sources. Vicious cycle, anyone. So what do? Intensify the Theriocide, of course. More aerial spraying, more systemic insecticides injected into trees, more broad-spectrum poisons. But remember that bombshell 2025 meta-analysis in Nature Communications. Over 20,000 effect sizes from 1,705 studies pesticides hammer non-target everything. Growth stunted in amphibians, reproduction crashed in birds, behaviors warped in fish, microbes decimated. Over 800 species harmed, fueling the biodiversity crisis we're supposedly fighting. Buckle up for the examples, because these are wild. Mountain pine beetle, native to Western North America, but climate change turned episodic outbreaks into epidemics. Milder winters let larvae survive en masse, warmer summers speed cycles. Outbreaks now span millions of hectares, killing lodgepole and ponderosa pines, even jumping the Rockies into new territory. 2024 research shows elevated CO2 making them bigger and more dispersive. We respond with logging infested trees and insecticides, collateral theriocide on birds, beneficial bugs, soil life. Fall armyworm, native to the Americas, invaded Africa in 2016, now global menace. Climate models predict further spread with warming, erratic rains, and heat stress crops, making them vulnerable. Farmers blanket fields with pesticides, killing pollinators and natural's enemies, leading to rebounds and resistance. Emerald ash borer, sneaked in on shipping pallets, now devastating ash trees. Warming winters allow northward push. 2025 studies forecast global threats expanding. Control. Systemic neonics injected into trees, persistent poisons that hit bees, butterflies, aquatic life downstream. It's a perfect storm. Climate amps pests, we amp theriocide, cascades worsen. We're not solving problems, we're accelerating them. 8. Theriocide in folklore and religion. All right, pour another drink because now we're diving into the weird. Ancient stories humans tell ourselves to justify going full exterminator on animals. Turns out, theriocide isn't just modern hubris, it's baked into our myths, religions, and folklore, often sanctifying the slaughter while ignoring the ecological blowback. These tales cast pests as evil chaos bringers or divine punishments, greenlighting mass killings that backfire spectacularly. And in 2025, with climate cranking up pest surges, we're still haunted by these narratives. European medieval folklore, total rat and plague obsession. The Pied Piper of Hamelin 1284 legend Guy lures rats away with music after the town stiffs him, then takes the kids. Mirrors real bounties that wiped out cats seen as witchy, letting rats explode and spread the Black Death. Folklore glorified eradication, ignored predators boom, 50 million dead humans. Witch hunts tied in, cats demonic culled en masse. Pope Gregory Roman IX 1233 bull vilified them, populations tanked, rats partied. Feedback loop of fear and disease. Abrahamic traditions, Dominion theology from Genesis, subdue the earth, licenses broad theriocide. Biblical plagues frogs, locusts as divine wrath justify smashing pests. But medieval interpretations, like Passover rat traps, left carcasses rotting, worsening filth. Christianity's cat hate peaked with that papal bull decimated felines, unleashed rats, amplified plague. 2025, eco-theology critiques this as anthropocentric blindness. Flip to Hinduism and Buddhism. Ahimsa, non-violence, strains against pest reality. Bhagavad Gita allows duty-killing farmers vs. locusts, but karmic ripples warn of ecological debt. Buddhist texts call insect killing trifling, yet it fosters pesticide reliance, disrupting soil fungi 30% in Indian paddies. Folklore flips pests to allies sometimes. Hanuman's rat army in Ramayana. But colonial culls ignored that, sparking urban monkey booms in Delhi. Indigenous Australian Dreamtime. Dingoes embody balance. 1880s Christian justified bounties unleashed feral cats. Crashing native mammals, 2025 studies link to 40% biodiversity loss in pastoral zones. African Yoruba. Locusts as messengers. Colonial sprays clashed with rituals, triggering famines as pollinators died. Modern intersections. Religious festivals displace or kill pests, ritually Thailand's Loy Krathong releases, blessed critters, fouling waters. Mexican Day of the Dead rat hunts contaminate with rodenticides. These stories aren't dusty relics, they shape policy. Mao's sparrow cull echoed zealotry, booming locusts, starving millions. 2025 debates question wild animal suffering through folklore lenses. Selective pain narratives ignore interdependence. Ultimately, myth-sanctified theriocide blinds us to cascades 25% yield losses from lost enemies, per global reviews. Reintegrating balanced folklore, like Shinto appeasements, could shift to harmony. 9. Ethical and legal dimensions. Oh boy, now we're hitting the heart stuff, the why this all feels so wrong, and why the law's playing catch-up. Theriocide isn't just ecological folly, it's ethical quicksand. We're speciesist as heck, prioritizing human convenience over sentient beings' pain. Piers Bairn's framework non-speciesist criminology calls it harm akin to homicide. Animals feel pain like us nociceptors across vertebrates, yet pests get zero rights. Speciesism, arbitrary human supremacy. Bairn roots theriocide in this bias, invisibilizing deaths in farms, fields, labs. Green criminology frames culls as necropolitic state violence deeming animals, bare life, expendable. Sentience, undeniable. Pests suffer, rodents and anticoagulants bleed internally days, insects dismembered slowly. Wild animal suffering debates ineffective altruism. Folklore overstates prey pain, but theriocides like China's sparrow campaign caused massive unintended harm. Was argues selective narratives justify inaction. Legal gaps. Pest status means impunity. But glimmers EU's 50% pesticide reduction by 2030 curbs drift progress, uneven post-2024 withdrawal, but trends down 27% for hazardous by 2023. EPA's 2024-2025 neonics evaluations. Likely jeopardy for hundreds endangered species, whooping cranes, bats, butterflies. CITES issues. Translocations like India's cheetahs raise mortality ethics. Human health ties. Theriocide pesticides yield nutrient-poor crops, breed resistance genes leaching everywhere. Disrupted soils spawn pathogens. We need paradigm shift. View pests as ecosystem players, not foes. Rights views deem killings violations. Wrap-up reflection. Man, from climate-fueled pest booms triggering more poison cascades, to ancient myths justifying slaughter, to ethics screaming this is wrong, we've painted ourselves into a corner of hubris. Theriocide backfires ecologically, morally erodes us, legally lags. But 2025, dare those damning meta-analyses, EPA admissions lights a path. Reduce chemicals, embrace balance, extend justice beyond humans. Tease for next, but wait till you hear how some places are flipping the script with alternatives that actually work, no killing required. You won't believe the rebounds. You're listening to Singularity -1. If you're enjoying this deeper dive, make sure to subscribe on YouTube and smash that follow on Spotify, drop a like, leave a comment, share it with a friend. It really means the world and helps us keep making these. Quick note, we do our absolute best to be factually correct, but if we ever slip up, call us out in the comments so we can fix it. Thanks for being here, now back to the facts. 10. Broader environmental ripples. Okay, so we've been chatting about all these wild stories of humans deciding to play God with animals we call pests, and how it almost always blows up in our faces like a bad prank. But now, let's zoom out a bit, because the mess doesn't stop at the immediate oops. The rats are back and angrier. No, these theriocides, yeah, that's our fancy term for animal murder sprees send shockwaves through the entire environment. Messing with everything from the top of the food chain to the dirt under our feet. It's like knocking over one domino and watching the whole table collapse in slow motion. And trust me, as we hit December 19, 2025, with all these fresh studies piling up, it's clearer than ever that we're not just killing pests. We're unraveling the planet's safety net. What the heck were we thinking? Let's start with those trophic cascades we touched on earlier, remember? That's ecology speak for when you yank one player out of the game and the whole team falls apart. From apex predators down to the tiniest pollinators, it's a chain reaction of chaos. Take wolves, for example. Back in Yellowstone, when we wiped out the gray wolves in the early 1900s because, they were munching on our precious elk, the elk population exploded like they won the lottery. By the 1930s, there were over 20,000 elk just chowing down on every willow, aspen, and cottonwood in sight. Riverbanks eroded because no trees meant no roots holding the soil together. Beavers starved without their favorite snacks, and suddenly the streams are all silted up, killing off fish. Songbirds dipped out because their nesting spots were gone. Coyotes tried to fill the gap but ended up overpreying on small stuff, creating even more imbalances. Are you kidding me? We thought we were protecting the elk for hunting, but we turned the park into a barren elk buffet. Fast forward to 1995, when they reintroduced just 31 wolves and boom, elk got smarter, browsed less aggressively, willows shot up 300%, beavers came back, rivers stabilized. A 2007 trophic model nailed it. Remove the top dog, and the herbivores run wild. It's happening everywhere in Norway with wolf culls for sheep, risking what experts call ecocidal biodiversity loss. And don't get me started on pollinators. When we spray neonics to kill aphids, we wipe out ladybugs and bees too. A 2025 Nature Communications meta-analysis of over 1,705 studies shows pesticides hammering non-target bugs, stunting growth and messing with behaviors. Bees get disoriented, can't find their way home. Imagine that, a world without honey or half our fruits. Here's where it gets absolutely bonkers. In U.S. Midwest farmlands, insecticides have tanked butterfly species richness amid all these monocultures. We're not just losing pretty wings, we're losing the glue that holds crops together. Speaking of biodiversity loss, oh boy, this is where Theriocide really shows its ugly side. Endangered species are dropping like flies literally because of our pesticide obsession. That same 2025 global synthesis. It crunched 20,000 effect sizes and found overwhelmingly negative hits on everything from microbes to mammals. Temperate zones are getting slammed hardest, but tropics aren't safe either. Take the EPA's 2024 biological evaluations. Neonicotinoids are putting 80% of U.S. endangered species at risk, from whooping cranes picking up contaminated seeds to cave shrimp in poisoned groundwater. In a February 2025 environmental entomology study, they exposed how pesticide drift turns wild areas into killing fields, slashing wild plant diversity by over 50% and starving pollinators. Butterflies, bees, even soil critters gone, and sub-lethal effects. Birds' navigation fried, fish behaviors altered, amphibians stunted. Experts reacting in science media center briefings called it a ticking time bomb. Remember the barred owls in the Pacific Northwest? We're planning to cull 500,000 over 30 years to save spotted owls, but early data shows it scatters survivors, increasing hybridization and messing with forest dynamics. Or prairie dogs in the U.S. poison them to save grasslands, and you starve black-footed ferrets and burrowing owls. A 2023 study on China's Qinghai Tibetan Plateau pikas, keystone burrowers, shows culling them leads to 40% biodiversity dips, erosion, and invasive weeds booming. It's not just loss, it's accelerating the sixth extinction. We're talking 800+ non-target species harmed, per that meta-analysis. And in aquatic terrestrial links, parity and damage residues bioaccumulate, earthworms hoard DDT-like stuff, poisoning robins. Buckle up, because this ties right into contamination. Aquatic and terrestrial contamination. This is the sneaky villain that keeps on giving. Runoff from our pest killing sprees doesn't stay put. It leaches into rivers, lakes, oceans, causing eutrophication and dead zones. Picture this. In the Gulf of Mexico, Midwest farm runoff amped up by climate-driven rains creates hyposic blobs thousands of square kilometers big, killing fish and shellfish in mass Theriocide events. Algal blooms choke everything, thanks to nitrate surges from disrupted soil microbes. A 2025 Environmental Pollution Review pegs airborne drift carrying residues 500 m+, contaminating sites and gutting wildflowers. In U.S., South ball weevil fights, arsenic and DDT runoff polluted delta fisheries, algal blooms everywhere. Or Britain's badger culls disrupted clans compact soil, increasing runoff that carries Mycobacterium bovis farther. Terrestrial side, soil gets hammered. Persistent residues erode microbial diversity, vital for nutrient cycling. 2025 bioarchive preprint shows neonicotinoids decimating earthworm guts, dropping aeration 30%. Fungicides like azoxystrobin zap non-target yeasts, slowing decomposition. Mixtures in 80% of fields synergize harms, having diversity and leaching resistance genes into water. In Brazilian soy fields, glyphosate links to 50% AMF fungi decline, eroding 2 tons of soil per hectare yearly, silting rivers 100 km downstream. And climate feedback. Fragmented habitats release carbon, lost beavers worsen floods. It's a total mess, pesticides turning soils into biological deserts, less resilient to drought. Human health. Crops with lower nutrients, antibiotic-resistant bugs emerging. Economically, $50 billion yearly in degradation per 2025 estimates. And then, the invasive species booms filling those ecological voids talk about ironic twists. When we cull apex predators like dingoes in Australia since the 1880s, feral cats explode, covering 99.8% of the continent. A 2019 UNSWA study across 400 sites shows cat densities 3-5x higher without dingoes, preying on macropods and rodents unchecked. Foxes surge too. In mesopredator release, small mammals flee. Vegetation gets trampled. Soils erode. Ranchers spend $20M plus yearly on new pests. Or Macquarie Island. Cull cats from 1980s to 2001 to save seabirds, and rabbits quadruple to 130,000, grazing 40% of slopes bare, weeds invading, burrows collapsing. Cost $25M to fix in 2014. In Tasmania, low-level cat culls doubled populations as juveniles flooded in. Open systems, right. Voids get filled fast. Post-sparrow cull in Mao's China, locusts went biblical, stripping crops. DDT in 1940s, Pennsylvania killed birds and ladybugs, unleashing aphids on oaks. Ball weevils' pesticide wars birthed aphids and plant bugs, yields down 30%. We're creating niches for worse invaders, like Palmer amaranth weeds resisting glyphosate, forcing more sprays. A 2025 ethno-ecological study links dingo bounties to 40% biodiversity dips in pastoral zones. Human stupidity roasted. We kill guardians, summon scourges. It's hubris in action, and the environment pays the bill. 11. Alternatives to lethal control. All right, listener, if you're as fed up as I am with all this backfiring bloodshed, here's the good part, the light at the end of the tunnel where we stop being murder hobos and start being smart about it. Because, surprise, there are ways to handle pests without turning everything into a toxic wasteland or sparking ecological Armageddon. We're talking alternatives to lethal control, and as of this fresh December 19, 2025 vibe, with policies shifting and studies backing it up, it's not just hippie dreams, it's practical, proven stuff. Lean in, because this is where we roast the old ways and cheer for the clever ones. What the heck took us so long? First up, integrated pest management, or IPM. Think of it as the grown-up version of pest control, where we monitor, set thresholds, and prevent instead of just blasting everything. No more reactive hammer, it's nuanced nails all the way. You scout fields or yards regularly, using apps or simple checks to spot issues early. Thresholds mean you only act when pests hit a level that actually threatens damage, say, 10% crop loss, not just you, a bug. Prevention. Habitat tweaks like diverse plantings to attract natural enemies or resistant crop varieties. In Indonesian rice fields, IPM cut rodent damage from 30% to 15% without mass culls, just by syncing planting and using traps smartly. A 2024 CABI review shouts out nature-based solutions like predator strips in Kenyan papaya fields, halting mealybug booms without biodiversity hits. Farmers/chemical use by 90%, per studies yields up, costs down. In urban spots, IPM means sealing entry points for rats instead of poison bombs. Are you kidding me? It's so simple, yet we ignored it for decades. 2025 trends show adoption jumping, with EU mandates pushing thresholds. No more overkill, it's balance, baby. Then biological controls unleashing nature's hit squad. Predators, parasites, nematodes. Instead of chemicals, you introduce or boost the bad guy's natural enemies. Parasitic wasps on aphids. They lay eggs inside, turning pests into zombie nurseries, gross but effective. In apple orchards, releasing ladybugs mows down aphids without neonics. Nematodes, those microscopic worms, target soil pests like grubs, infecting and killing from within. Bacillus thuringiensis, a bacterial pesticide, zaps caterpillars but spares most others. A 2025 webinar on the Theriocide-Ecocide nexus highlights how this boosts biodiversity. Predator strips enhance services, no cascades. In Australian sugarcane, dung beetles bury manure, cutting fly pests. For wolves or badgers. Vaccination trials in UK since 2025 pivot from culls, stabilizing TB without disruption. High intensity for invasives, saturate with biologics. It's like hiring bouncers instead of burning the club down. Costs? Initial setup, but long-term savings, huge, less resistance, healthier ecosystems. Here's the bonkers part. Colonial Brits ignored Hanuman folklore in India, culling monkeys, but biocontrols like sterile males could flip it. We're finally listening. Regenerative agriculture. Oh, this is the soil hugger's dream. Cover crops, no-till, focusing on health to make pests irrelevant. Cover crops like clover between rows, smother weeds, fix nitrogen, attract beneficials. No-till keeps soil structure intact, microbes thriving, earthworms up, erosion down. In Midwest corn, regs cut pesticide needs by a third per 2025 models. Soil health means resilient plants that shrug off pests. Diverse rotations confuse bugs. A 2025 bioarchive notes gradual apps preserve 20% more microbes than sprays. In arid West, cover crops mitigate rabbit overgrazing post-coyote culls. Economic hit. GDP boost 13% from healthier soils. It's anti-theriocide, build up, don't tear down. Adoption? Lagging at 10%, but 2025 incentives are pushing. Non-toxic tools. Neem oil soaps trap neuter release. Neem, from Indian trees, repels insects without killing, disrupts breeding, safe for bees. Soaps suffocate soft-bodied pests like aphids on contact. For cats or dingoes, high-intensity TNR. Trap, neuter, release en masse to cap populations without voids. Tasmanian trials show saturation works where low-level fails. Mulching, solarization, flaming for weeds, no runoff. In urban Delhi monkey booms, non-toxic repellents per folklore could ease conflicts. Cheap, low-tech, effective. A 2024 sendwork trend, 30% mosquito fighters ditching synthetics for soaps. Bonkers how we overlooked this. Nature-based solutions and high-intensity non-lethal. Big picture, restore habitats, use fences or guardians like llamas for livestock. High intensity, overwhelm with traps or sterilants, no kill. In New Zealand possum wars, fertility baits over poisons. 2025 federal cat plans in Australia pivot to this, having felines with dingo rebounds. It's coexistence, pests as partners. Hurdles, logistics but gains, no cascades, ethics intact. We're turning the tide. You're listening to Singularity -1. If you're enjoying this deeper dive, make sure to subscribe on YouTube and smash that follow on Spotify, drop a like, leave a comment, share it with a friend. It really means the world and helps us keep making these. Quick note, we do our absolute best to be factually correct, but if we ever slip up, call us out in the comments so we can fix it. Thanks for being here, now back to the facts. 12. 2025 Reckoning, Current Trends and Future Outlook. We've covered a lot of ground on how we've been screwing this up for centuries, but let's talk about right now, December 19, 2025, and where this Theriocide madness is headed. With climate alarms blaring louder than ever, fresh studies dropping like hot potatoes, and policies finally catching up. It's a reckoning. Are we learning? Kinda. It's messy, but there's hope mixed in with the sarcasm. Grab your drink. This is the part where we roast the present and peek at tomorrow. Recent studies and policy shifts are shaking things up. That February 2025 Nature Communications meta-analysis. Game changer 1,705 studies, 20,000 effects, proving pesticides crush non-targets, fueling biodiversity crisis. EPA's 2024 neonics indictment. 80% endangered species at risk, leading to lawsuits and bans talks. EU's 50% pesticide cut by 2030. Already curbing drift, indirect Theriocide drop. UX badger vaccine trials post-2023 study showing culls spike TB 20-30% pivot to jabs, no roaming chaos. India's Project Cheetah, high mortality questions ethics, but 2025 translocations add welfare checks. A January 2025 World Animal Justice Report plugs ecocide gaps, urging ICC for ag theriocides. China's Peaker Rethink. 2023 studies show keystones, halting poisons. Global, FAO's 1.8 hectare spray estimate pushes IPM. Vaccine for possums. 2025 trials. It's slow but shifts from kill to cure. Calls for non-speciesist criminology and abolition. Bairn's Legacy. 2025 Criminology and Criminal Justice on culling necropolitics animals as bare life. Non-speciesism demands parity, theriocide like homicide. Sage 2024 on management as violence. Abolition, end factory theriocide, pest euphemisms. ZooCheck PDF on reptile trades flags welfare. Academia Edu dossiers tie to ecocide. Ex-amps, virtue signals roasted. Toward coexistence, reimagining pests as partners. Keystone views Pika's errate, rats cycle nutrients. Policies honor folklore balances like Shinto rituals. AI models predict outbreaks, biosecurity in trade. Education shifts paradigms. Sustainable, IPM global, carbon pricing tempers climate pest links. Future, holistic animals in web of life, bonkers potential. 13. Conclusion and reflection. And there you have it, folks. We've just spent way too long staring into the abyss of human hubris, and guess what? The abyss is staring back with a smirk, holding a spray bottle of neonics and a badger trap. We started with the word theriocide, that fancy term for when we decide some animals are just too annoying to live, and we've walked through centuries of it. Medieval cats burned as Satan's sidekicks, Mao's sparrow genocide that turned into a locust apocalypse, Yellowstone's elk party after we shot the wolves, Tasmania's feral cats doubling down the second we tried to thin them out. Badgers wandering farther and spreading TB because we couldn't leave well enough alone. We've seen pesticides drift like silent assassins, turning wildflowers into graveyards and owls into walking poison. We've watched soil microbes, literal life support for the planet, get collateral damage because we couldn't stop spraying. And every single time, the punchline is the same. We thought we were fixing the problem, but we were just upgrading it. The crazy part, we knew better. We've had the science, the studies, the field reports, the meta-analyses, the 2025 numbers screaming stop. And yet we keep doubling down. Why? Because it's easier to kill than to think. Easier to spray than to listen. Easier to call something a pest than to admit it might be part of a system we barely understand. But here's the thing, and I'm not saying this to be preaky, I'm saying it because I'm tired of watching us repeat the same dumb plot. Every time we've tried to force nature to bend to our will, nature has bent us right back. Harder, louder, with interest. The good news, we're not doomed. Not yet. The same 2025 studies that indict us also point the way out. Integrated pest management that actually integrates, biological controls that let predators do their job, regenerative farming that rebuilds soil instead of bombing it, vaccines instead of culls. Habitat restoration instead of habitat destruction. These aren't pie-in-the-sky ideas. They're working in pockets right now, and they're cheaper and smarter than the alternatives in the long run. So what's the takeaway? Stop treating the planet like it's a video game where you can just reload if you mess up. We don't get a reload. Every cull, every spray, every bounty is a choice. And the bill is coming due in degraded soils, collapsing food webs, and a planet that's getting harder to live on. If we're ever going to break the cycle, it starts with one simple, uncomfortable truth. There are no pests, only pieces of a system we've been too arrogant to understand. Call them pests, and we give ourselves permission to kill. Call them neighbors, and suddenly we have to figure out how to live with them. So next time someone tells you we need to control a species, ask, control for what? And at what cost? Because the echoes of our hubris are getting louder, and they're not going to shut up until we do. That's all for this episode of Singularity -1. If you enjoyed these mind-blowing facts, make sure to subscribe and follow us on YouTube and Spotify. Smash that like button, drop a comment, and share it with a friend. It really means the world to us and helps us keep going. Quick heads up, we work hard to get every fact spot on, but nobody's perfect. If we ever mess something up, please call us out in the comments so we can correct it right away. We love having you here. Thank you so much for watching/listening, and we'll see you in the next one.